just lift up a song of thanksgiving today. Let's just bless the Lord. Oh, we worship your holy name. Yeah, come on, lift it up. Lift up your praise. Oh, you're worthy. You're worthy. You're worthy. Yeah, come on, lift it up. Lift it up. Oh, we bless you, Lord. We bless you. So my soul, I'll worship his holy name. Come on, every voice shout it out. Sing like never before. It's all my soul, I'll worship your holy name. Come on, lift your hands and sing that one more time. Oh, bless the Lord, oh my soul. I'll worship your oh, we sing like never before. We'll sing like never before. It's all my soul. Oh, we'll worship. Come on, one more time. Bless the Lord. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. It's all my soul. I'll worship his holy name. Oh, we sing like never before. It's all my soul. I'll worship your holy name. Come on, lift a shout today. So bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh,
No. All right. How is everybody? Welcome. Glad y'all are here. We're I think he's already got us broadcasting here, so be careful what you say. No, we'll look at our devotion here in just a minute, and then we'll move it to our prayer times and turn all that off. But we are glad you're here tonight. Those that are joining us on social media, thank you for joining us there too, and hope everyone has had a good week. Announcement wise, I'll just mention to you the youth are doing D Now this weekend, so y'all pray for them. And they're also doing the Valentine. I think I called it a banquet on the phone tree this morning, but really it's just a dinner. It's not a sit down banquet or anything. But that's going to be starting at 11. After the service is over with, you can pick them up. It's $8 a plate. It'll be poppy seed chicken and green beans. I think that's the other in a roll. I think that's the other parts of it. So help them out if you like. I think we've had about 60 some odd people sign up. The phone tree doubled what we had signed up earlier. So I'm gonna. Ken and I were talking about this the other day. Actually, that we need to do a better job of communicating. So I'm gonna try to at least do one phone tree a week of just reminding people of what what's going on, and some of them would be reminders, some of them would be a first time thing. So if I don't do it one week, I'll say, hey, how come you didn't do the phone tree this week? And I'll get in the habit of doing it. Welcome the Bonners with us tonight, and we can add y'all to that if you want us to, if you want to keep up with what's going on. But But that's the two things this weekend. So pray for our young people, both of them related to them. Of course, Sunday is Valentine's Day itself. So we'll be ready for that too. If you got your Bibles, turn to 1 Corinthians 16. 1 Corinthians 16, or find your phone or your mobile device or whatever it is you use nowadays and find 1 Corinthians 16. We've been talking for the last several weeks. Of course, last week we were in revival, so we didn't look at it. But back in the 1st of January, I introduced the idea of kind of focusing on being the church in this year of 2021. And we've been looking on Wednesday nights at some keys to what it means to be the church. And we talked the first week about it, that we are here to glorify the Lord. We talked about the fact that we're to gather, the church is to come together. And then 2 weeks ago, we talked about the church is to go. We're to be out, and of course, we use the Great Commission for that passage. And so the church exists, we've been saying, to glorify God. We exist as a body of believers to gather. And there's things that we gather for. We gather for instruction. We gather for direction, inspiration, encouragement, help, support, whatever may be needed, and ultimately it leads to our worship. And so certainly the church gathers to worship, and then we are to go and spread the good news. Tonight, our fourth word is going to be give. The church gives. If we're going to be the church, then we have to give, don't we? And I'll explain that in just a minute, a little more. But it's not a tithing message, but it kind of is, because the tithe is certainly a part of our giving. So if you'll look at 1 Corinthians 16, the purpose of the church really isn't going to be complete unless we are giving people. And of course, that has to do with a lot of different areas. But specifically in this passage, he's talking about a financial gift, I think. Verse 1 says, "Now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given orders to the churches in Galatia, so you must do also. On the first day of the week, let each one of you lay something aside, storing up as he may prosper, that there be no collections when I come. And when I come, whomever you approve by your letters, I will send to bear your gift to Jerusalem. But if it is fitting that I go also, they will go with me." So if you go back to verse 1 there, that very first phrase, "Now concerning the collection," the word collection, and I didn't do a deep dive on this particular word, but I thought it was kind of interesting. It kind of originates with the root word, the Greek word of logos, the word. We recognize that word, but it goes a little deeper than that, and it's the idea of speaking with words, and we know that we do that. But in general, it's talking about communication and how you communicate. So the word collection here, now concerning the collection of the saints, it's almost the idea that this collection that you're doing speaks for who you are and what you're doing and what you're standing for and what your what your in this case, what their ministry is going to be. And just kind of stretching that out a little bit, the way we give does tell a lot about who we are, doesn't it? As believers, it tells a lot of who we are as the church. It tells a lot of who we are as individuals, and so we, from our giving, speaks volumes about our relationship with God. Because if you got that part settled, then you've come a long way as far as the Christian walk, because you've moved from a selfishness to a givingness in your day-to-day walk. So you don't have to answer these out loud, of course, but what does your giving say about you? Yeah, that's a question we probably ought to ask. And how does the church's offerings or givings, what's it say about us? As the church itself, and would your giving be a good measuring stick for your spiritual development or maturity? That takes this idea of giving a little bit deeper than just what the money really or what we think about money sometimes. So do we measure up? So I want to look at some principles right here in this passage about giving, and you probably have heard this passage used before on tithing messages, and we are going to look at that just a little bit. But the first thing I want you to notice is the people who are to give. Look at the people that are supposed to give. Look at verse 2. It says, on the first day of the week, let each one of you lay something aside. And so I thought it was interesting. Paul is teaching, of course, to the Corinthian church right here, but he basically says the same thing in the book of Galatians to that church. So you get this idea that he's talking to the church at large, isn't he? He's talking to us. If you just fast forward it to right here in 2021, the church is to be a giving church. Now, Southern Baptists have a unique way of giving, and that's through our cooperative program. And through the cooperative program, we're able to do a lot more things than what we would be able to do as an individual church. And so we as a church give to the cooperative program. We also give to some specific things. We just finished up the Lottie Moon Christmas offering, and guess what it's time for now? The Annie Armstrong North American Mission Board offering. So, yeah, and Global Hunger also. And so there's always opportunities for us to do that. Those are more specific gifts, but in a broad way, we give to the cooperative program, and I'll save that for a few minutes. So I think you can make that you could gain that out of here. But really, I think what he's talking about here is every child of God, each member of every church is to be a contributor to the work of the church. Isn't that what he says? Let each one of you lay something aside. So really, if you ask the question, who's to give? Well, every child of God is the one who's supposed to give. We're supposed to be givers. I know we went through a time as the convention here a few years ago now where we actually had to call missionaries back home because we didn't have the finances for them to stay on the mission field, and we think about churches struggling. We from time to time have those kind of struggles ourselves, but the problem is not really a shortage of money, is it? My goodness, the government just prints it up, so it's out there. We just need to it's out there, but there is a shortage of givers. I think that's the point. There's a shortage of givers here. I know y'all have heard this story. Probably every preacher in the world has told it. But R.G. Lee was telling us a time about a man he was baptizing, and the man was told in the dressing room that to make sure he removed his wallet and all. But the man said that he wanted his billfold to be baptized along with the rest of him. And we joke about that sometimes, but that's what we're talking about, really, isn't it? Somehow or another, we've got where this idea of giving is a secondary or a third or a fourth or a fifth thing that we're to do. But really, I think it's one of the first things that we should be doing in our Christian walk. So the people who are to give is each one of us, whether you're in the Corinthian church or whether you're in the Millbrook church. That's what we're to do. Second thing is this: the place where we are to give. He says, on the first day of the week, verse 2 again, let every one of you lay something aside, storing up as he may prosper, that there be no collections when I come. The first day of the week in our world now is Sunday. And what takes place on Sunday? Church, worship, whatever you want, whatever word you say. I heard somebody use the term big church the other day, and that's what we always called it when I was growing up. We'd go from Sunday school or wherever, and we're going to big church. So when you come to big church, that's the time that you give. But I guess more directly, what he's talking about here, the place that you give your offering is your church, the church that you participate in, the church that you're a member of, the church where you belong. And so it's the idea of us as we store up the treasures, that it comes to the local church, and I think that's what he's talking about here. Can you support other ministries? Certainly, if there are things that are on your heart and God has laid on your heart. But I think it all starts at the local church, and the other things are secondary after after that, and we just need to be careful with that, I think, and you have to be careful. You need to know who you're giving to. If you're going to give it to a secondary, well, really the local church, you need to be sure too of what's going on. But there needs to be an accountability that's there. So the place to give is the church that you are a part of. The next thing would be the percentage of our giving. And this is the one that really may, you say the other two, all right, Brother Mike, I got those. But look at verse 2 again. On the first day of the week, let someone, or let each one of you lay something aside. And listen what he says here, storing up as he may prosper. Now that makes giving a whole new light when you stop and think about it. How much should we give? We've talked about this before. I know the Old Testament talks about the tithe, and I think the 10%, and that's probably where you start. I mean, I think that's where you start is right there. Some would even go so far as to say that's the minimum that you should contribute, because that's what the Lord has required is a 10%. It belongs to the Lord, and we're to give it to Him. And how can you give something that already belongs to Him? You know, how's that an offering if He's said that's what we need to do? But you can argue that. But I think what we need to note here, Paul says our giving are to be as God has prospered. I was reading a story earlier today, and it was talking about it was a pastor, and he was visiting one of his wealthy church members. Actually, he had been invited, and he said the man was good to invite him to his house, and they would hunt and fish and things like that. And he said one day, I think he was a deacon too. We'll go ahead and throw the deacon part in. So he asked him one day, "Preacher, how come?" While he was at his house, "How come you don't preach more on tithing?" And he talked to him with it, and he said, "Really, what I really need to be preaching on," and he called his name, is I need to be preaching to giving off of how you have prospered. And I won't go into the whole story, but it got real quiet in that room, because this man was giving a lot. More than likely, he was giving, more than, dollar amount, more than anybody else was. But was he giving as God had prospered him? No, he wasn't doing that. And so he didn't ask him to preach a tithing or giving message anymore. But I think that's the point right here. Everyone's to give. We're not to be excused or excluded from that, and we give based on how God has prospered us. And certainly some give their tithe, and maybe that's all they can do. But there are others that can do way beyond that, and that's what he's saying to do. There was a study done, and I just listed this one thing. It was a pretty in-depth thing, but it was talking about gifts that had been given to charitable causes. And I thought this was interesting that that the people that give, let's see, how did it word it? The people that give most to charitable things are people that make less than $30,000 a year, percentage-wise. I mean, the cash may not add up, but they're the givers. And we see that in Alabama. Alabama continually, year after year now, leads the whole Southern Baptist Convention in cooperative program giving. And Alabama is not a wealthy state, and Lottie Moon too. That's right. And so, and 30,000 might be a little low. I don't know. I don't remember when that study was done. But the point is, Alabama's not a rich state. We don't have a huge population either compared to some of the other states. But regularly we give more than the other states around the nation here. And so what does that tell us here is, again, that those who have prospered probably give the least when you get right down to the actual dollar amount. So Paul's very specific here, storing up as he may prosper. That's what you give off of today, and that supports the work of the church and beyond that. And so maybe the Lord's not looking at an amount. Maybe He's looking about how faithful we are to how He's prospered us compared to what we give. So something for us to think about. And then the last thing is the purpose of our giving. Go back and look at verse 1 again. It says, "Now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given orders in the church of Galata, So you must do also on the first day of the week, let each one of you lay something aside, um, storing up as he may prosper, that there be no collections when I come. And when I come, whomever you approve by your letters, I will send to bear your gift to Jerusalem. But if it is fitting that I go also, they will go with me. So he generally what he's talking about here is the church in Jerusalem was going through persecution. They were suffering, and they were going to take up an offering to help the saints that were there. And basically, Paul says, I really just as soon as you took care of all that before I get there, so we don't even have to deal with that, and it won't be like I'm doing a a fundraising thing when I come to be with you. Get that taken care of, get it out of the way, and then we'll deal with how to get it there as best we can, or what we think is best when the time comes. So, just to ask ourselves a question: why should we give? Well, number one, I think because we have been blessed, haven't we? And we're able to do that, and we should look forward to that. We give because we're commanded to be quite honest here. And in this, Paul is referring to this collection for the saints. And the persecution that was going on, and apparently the Corinthian church here gave generously to what was taking place there for support for the advancement of the work and the ministry there. And of course, we do that as a church today too, for the work that needs to go on here in Millbrook and across Alabama and across our nation and around the world. And so we really should give because it's a blessing, and it goes back to the teaching that it's more blessed to give than to receive. So if we're going to be the church in 2021 and beyond, then we meet together to glorify God. We gather in that process for inspiration, for help, for fellowship, whatever words you put there. For the spiritual well-being of the body of Christ, we gather together. Then we're to go into all the nations and into the workplace, into the schoolhouse, wherever it is that God leads us, and then we're to give for the work of the ministry that goes beyond what maybe us individually can do. So that's the fourth one. We've got one more next week that we'll look at, and we'll finish up this little series. But anybody care to add to that or question about anyone? Well, we'll say goodbye.